So you criticize the media and you create your own echo chamber of propaganda. You call it truth even though you know you're lying.
Good Lord. What happens if the entire media have become a propaganda outlet for the Democratic Party? What happens then? Now, one of the weird oddities of the Democratic approach to the Trump administration is they want to suggest that the government is both attempting to radically cut itself and also is an autocracy. One of the foremost people making this claim is, of course, former Georgia Governor Stacey Abrams. I'm joking. She was never the governor, but she claims she was the governor. And then she thought about running for president, and then she didn't run for president. So maybe she's the former president as well. In any case, she has a new viral video called 10 Steps to Autocracy that she did with Jimmy Kimmel. Well, let's hear it, Stacey.
Okay, so this happens in every nation that has become an autocracy, having been a democracy. So whether we're talking about Brazil with Bolsonaro, or India, or Putin and Russia, the Philippines with Duterte. So start with winning an election.
Okay, pause it there for 1 second. Okay, I just want to say at the very outset that Brazil did not become an autocracy under Bolsonaro. And India is not an autocracy now under Modi. So at least two of the examples she's currently citing are not, in fact, autocracies. In fact, Bolsonaro is no longer in charge of Brazil, and actually it's more of an autocracy thanks to the leadership of left-winger Lula da Silva, which is why President Trump just hit them with a 50% tariff. In any case, here is Stacey Abrams continuing.
Usually the last one you're going to get to have for real. Number two, you have an expansion of executive power. The president decides he wants more than he's supposed to have. Number three, you start to make the Congress complicit. So you weaken them and you neutralize or neuter the judiciary. Like, the Supreme Court giving you unfettered power and saying we don't have the ability to stop things.
Well, actually, that's not neutralizing the judiciary. Okay, so there are a bunch of things to say here. One, expansion of executive power. Remember that time that Barack Obama was president and he said that because Congress wouldn't give him what he wanted, he would use his pen and his phone to do things? Was that an expansion of executive power? Like a little bit? Like just a little? How that time that Joe Biden decided he could just make 80 million people vaccinate using OSHA regulations and that he could just alleviate the student loan debt of tens of millions of people just for no reason? Was that, in fact, an expansion of executive power or attempted expansion of executive power? I feel like yes. As far as the idea that you're running roughshod over the judiciary, when the judiciary rules in a way you don't like, that does not mean the judiciary has now been ignored. In fact, it was Joe Biden who was routinely saying that if the judiciary did not do the thing he wanted to do, he would simply find another way to do it. He said that with regard to the student loan process. So far, this is a really bad diagnosis by Stacey. I still can't get over the fact that she says when things are transforming into autocracies, you're having the last election you will ever have. And she cites Bolsonaro as a reason. But Bolsonaro is not the leader of Brazil and right now may end up in jail for a significant period of time. They had another election and the left won. This is just so stupid. Everyone is such an idiot. My goodness.
Then you move on to firing all of the people who know how to make government work. Mm-hmm. So you gut the civil service. And you do that because you want to break democracy so people forget the stuff that used to get done. So you can't get your Social Security check. So the CDC doesn't know what diseases are anymore. Mm-hmm. Then you put in place these loyalists, these people who are only responsive to you. You put them in charge of the FBI so they go after your enemies. You put them in charge of the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, so they can signal to their friends and tell them all about the evil plans that you have. Then you make certain that you break how we communicate. So you criticize the media and you create your own echo chamber of propaganda. You call it truth even though you know you're lying.
Oh, good Lord. Good Lord. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, it's pretty ironic when you think about it. Millions of military members have fought for our freedom. Unfortunately, our privacy is being eroded every single day. Our phones are listening, tech companies are tracking everything we do online, and all of that is actually legal. Fighting for freedom isn't just the military's job anymore. You actually need to do that in your actual life. That's why I use ExpressVPN. It's basically like a shield for your internet activity. Everything gets sent through encrypted servers so nobody can see what you're doing online. Not your internet providers, not data brokers, not government agencies. Here's what really impressed me. Last year, ExpressVPN got over 400,000 requests for customer data from tech companies and government agencies. You know how many times they actually handed over data? 0. They literally can't share what they don't have, thanks to their zero logs policy. The best part, it's stupidly easy to use. Just one click and you're protected. Works on everything. Phones, computers, tablets, your smart TV. You can protect up to 8 devices at once, so your whole family gets that privacy back. I use ExpressVPN all the time. I've been on the road a lot. That means I'm using public Wi-Fi. When I use public Wi-Fi, I got to be protected. ExpressVPN is my go-to. ExpressVPN is one of the best tools you can have. Find out how you can get 4 months free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or by heading on over to expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. Okay, so let's just get back to this. She says that you break the bureaucracy by making it not work in order to achieve an autocracy. Well, no, usually an autocracy is heavily reliant on a vastly effective bureaucracy that oversees every aspect of people's lives. So actually, the efficacy of the bureaucracy is a prerequisite to full autocracy. The problem in the Soviet Union or in Nazi Germany was not an incompetent bureaucracy. It was a highly, highly competent bureaucracy, particularly, for example, in CCP China right now. Very competent, very large, even if not competent, very large and overweening bureaucracy. And then says, well, you staff it with loyalists because, like the FBI, and have them go after your enemies. They literally prosecuted Donald Trump multiple times in the last administration. And you're like, what is she even? And then she says, and then you attack the media. You attack the sources of truth. You create your own propaganda outlet. What happens if the entire media have become a propaganda outlet for the Democratic Party? What happens then? Okay, we'll let her conclude this idiotic, foolish rant on Jimmy Kimmel.
Then you go to the next step, and I call that step 7. Because at step 7, you have to blame someone. You have to blame people for the broken government, for the broken promises. So you go after DEI. You go after the vulnerable, the dispossessed. You go after any community that doesn't look like what you think power should be. While you're doing that, you make certain that in step 8, you eliminate anybody who could help them. So you sue law firms that do pro bono cases. You go after philanthropies and accuse them of giving money to the wrong people. You go after colleges and universities that can teach people possibly what else they should know. You get to step 9 and you start to encourage and incentivize private violence. You send the U.S. Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Okay, so this is so insane. Because you accuse another group of the unworkability of government. Okay, the entire Democratic Party has been claiming for decades at this point the unworkability of the federal government is due to a white supremacist power structure that lies at the root of America, which means you have to have $2 billion riots in 2020. And then she says you have to attack the institutions. Oh, do you mean like the church and the family? Is that what you're talking about? You know, those institutions, like the fundamental institutions of civil society. And then she says you incentivize private violence and proceeds to give examples of actual law enforcement, the U.S. Marines and National Guard. Right? That's not incentivizing private violence. Incentivizing private violence, that would be like when you make excuses for gigantic riots that do $2 billion in damage, or like when you make excuses for people who murder healthcare CEOs, allegedly. And then she says, final step, no new elections. So her paranoia is there will be no new elections in 2028. I would love to see one iota of evidence of this, like one. But again, this is the paranoia justifies anything. It really does. The conspiratorial paranoia on the left justifies violence. It will get more violent from here, guys. It will. The permission structure has been set up, because if you really believe that Nazi Germany is a coming, then you are justified in joining the French resistance, like preemptively. You are justified in doing that. That is the permission structure that's being set up. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.